conversation to help me to gauge where I'm at. This change in the nation needs my concentration. I'll stay where I'm patiently sat. They say easy does it, might be easy for them, but I'm so used to saying I can't that it's hard to switch back to saying I can again. My heart wants to be among my loved ones, but my head feels lighter than air. My mind knows it's better to be braver, but my heart's racing too fast to dare. I'm quick to slip under when too many numbers are clouding my judgment and sense. Screw being cautious, but risks make me nauseous, and I don't want to stay on the fence. I wait for a reason, then I miss, then it's gone. But why bother jumping in deep when it's easy to run, so much easier to run? My hands want to reunite with others, but my legs are shaking too much. My feet want to step into my old shoes, but my palms feel damp to the touch. Maybe I'll stay here forever, or maybe I'll think now or never. Maybe it's not just me, and someone else understands. Most days I'm fixed and not broken. Most days my arms are wide open. So maybe I can. Everyone's hurting, it's not just my burden, but we need to stay safe and stay kind. It helps by revealing how we're really feeling. That's how I start healing.